Presented by Toshiba, Human Smart Community by Lifenology. Powered by Murugappa, Bet We Have Met. In association with Manyavar, Ye Diwali Roshan Aap Hi Se. Presented by ICICI Lombard Health Insurance. Journal partner, The Indian Practitioner. Exclusive media partner, Medgate. Magazine partner, Drug Today Medical Times. And Healthcare Executive. On-ground partner, Inox.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
The last episode of the Healthcare Summit saw the brightest minds from the healthcare industry speaking about how they have made a difference to the healthcare sector positively.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not often that the corporate world takes up an adequate level of social responsibility. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, whose organization has shown the world how to give selflessly and effectively. Please give a warm welcome to the Director, India Country Office of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Mr. Girendra Bihari, who's going to give us some rare insight on the foundation's need for innovation. Please welcome on stage Mr. Bihari.
Let me talk a bit about two features that define the foundation's work, including in India. The first one is, as a private foundation, we can take risks that it's hard for others to take. Let me illustrate that. All over Africa, from west to east, there's the so-called meningitis belt, which is affected by meningitis epidemics every now and then. And during the epidemic season, about 1 in 100 people is affected by that, and the devastation in those countries is absolute. It's of epic proportions. Those countries are countries like Senegal and Burkina Faso and Chad and the DRC and Central African Republic. Those are not big markets. And even though this is a vaccine-preventable disease, no commercial entity in the right mind will invest in the long and arduous process of developing a vaccine for those kinds of markets. And this is where we stepped in and partnered with an Indian company, Serum, to develop a low-cost vaccine that could be used in those markets. And indeed, this vaccine is now deployed at scale and has had incredible effect on the epidemic in the meningitis belt in Africa. The second feature of our work is that we are small and very ambitious. We are unquestionably a very large foundation, but unquestionably as well a very small player in India. If you look at the spending on healthcare in India, you will see the following. All external partners together, that includes us, includes the US, AID, includes the World Bank, includes any number of partners that you hear about, account for about 1.2 to 1.6% of health spending in India. 7% would be about from the central government, 14% from the state governments, and the balance of about 78% will be from their out-of-pocket private spending. So we are very small. Doesn't prevent us from being entirely ambitious. And our goals are not block level, village level, district level. We aspire for things like eradicating polio, eliminating visual leishmaniasis from South Asia, and even daringly looking at states like UP and Bihar, where we hope to bring down the rates of mortality for mothers and children to the same as what you can find in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So how do you reconcile those two limited resources with very, very high ambitions? And the answer to that is simply that we work in partnerships with everybody, people who actually can do things at scale, people who can innovate. We work with many of you in this room here across the spectrum, from academics, NGOs, civil society, pharma companies, and all the way up to state governments to be able to achieve that kind of impact. Accordingly, our work in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar is at 3 levels, I would say. The first one is with the frontline workers, the ASHAs, Anganwadi workers, the ANMs, who are at the forefront of this preventive and promotive work. They are the ones who are going to tell the moms about birth preparedness. They're the ones who are going to tell them about breastfeeding, about feeding the young infants. It's shocking to see how little infants are fed in India after age 6 months. They are the ones who are going to tell them about clean cord care. They're the ones telling them about kangaroo mother care, all life-saving technologies, approaches that are very, very low cost. We also work at the facility level where people get referred to or come. And there our work is very simple again. How do you see that the staff shows up? How do you see that they actually have the equipment that they need? How do you see that they are trained appropriately for the work that they have to do? And the third level of work we do, which is the most nascent piece of the work we do, which I'm most excited about, is how do we get all this to work as a system? How do we get to the system to work better? Because ultimately, if people are not showing up for work, they're not paid enough, they are being paid 6 months later, they don't qualify enough for the work, they're not trained enough for the work, they're not respected in their work, how do we expect them to perform? How do we expect them not to be demotivated by their work? So how do we actually bring this culture of management, this culture of data for decision making into the fabric of the government system is what we're working on right now. So I'll end here and simply humbly invite the partnership with you to continue so we can learn better alongside you and have even more of a health impact than we have had thus far. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be discussing her company's new technology innovation. Please join me in welcoming on stage President and Chief Executive Officer, GE Healthcare India, Ms. Terry Bressenham. Big round of applause for Ms. Bressenham.
I thought I'd start with probably an appropriate statement that our founder made over 125 years ago, and that's the spirit of innovation. It lives and breathes every day. We're always constantly challenging and thinking about what should be. And over the course of the last, I would say 10 years, and probably most relevant in the last 5 years, is a keen interest in how to meet the challenges of India. Because it is a very unique healthcare system. It's the only one of its type, in fact, that relies primarily on consumerism. The patients pay out of pocket, they have to make a decision on the behalf of their family, and the funding for that largely does come from their pocket. Now, while that does have a lot of challenges, and many of those have been discussed, it is important for us to think about the merit of that. And the merit of that is it is the world's most affordable healthcare system, bar none. We don't want to lose that. I don't think we want to make the same mistakes, in fact, that the Western world did, that created a very escalated cost structure, one that is completely disconnected from outcomes and outcomes that are related to how a patient knows their healthcare status. But with this, I'd like to kind of also compliment, I attended this past week the Prime Minister's Make in India campaign and the launch of that. In 25 sectors, and biotechnology or healthcare is one of those. The call, the clarion call, in fact, to come make those investments in India, therefore more relevant to the needs of the India market. But the third component of that, because I think we have long tried to help establish this, is to manufacture it here. Today, there's about a $4 billion healthcare medical device market in India, and about 80% of that is being imported. So not only is it not as relevant in terms of the environment it needs to serve, but clearly it's more expensive, and on top of that, the tax and duty structures that come with this. So we wholeheartedly believe that there is a very strong demand, of course, but there's also a very strong possibility for India to serve its own interests. And not only that, but I think in the long term, being a net exporter of technologies to the rest of the world, as every government around the world is desperately seeking a way to bend the healthcare cost curve. We heard many of the previous discussions are highlighting this, so I won't go into much detail, but as we look at patients, there's clearly the need for awareness. There's also a clear need for access, but inextricably linked to access is affordability. So the key component of any of the innovation processes that we look at have to address each of those components. We are making a substantial investment in healthcare. We spend over $1 billion as a company each year. And we are looking at India as one of the biggest investments, and we've grown the investments here almost in double terms over the course of the last 5 years. But it's also important that we make it here, as I mentioned earlier. But that isn't as simple as it may seem, because you need the suppliers and the supply base that's here to be able to manufacture. Otherwise, we're importing a lot of components to do the final product. So indeed, we're working on that element as well. And then the other piece of the ecosystem, which also has been discussed, but we need the skills to operate these systems. So we've just launched a business in education, which is targeted at skilling especially the semi-urban areas, so that the technology can meet up with somebody who actually can deliver safe and effective care. So we've got a lot of partners now that we are working both with government as well as with the private sector on helping to ensure that the skills that are in vast need for the delivery of healthcare to build out the access to healthcare can come along with the advancements of technology. The other thing that I would think is a big portion of how do we bring down the cost of care is that we need to be manufacturing more of the medical technologies here in this country. We've started with our partnership with Wipro. We're about to celebrate, in fact, our 25th anniversary. And we have made tremendous strides in this case, but there is still a lot left to do. And I say that on behalf of our entire industry of medical technology is when we're importing 80% of what we are selling to this market, there's a lot of room for improvement. So we do see this as something that is vital and important to the overall cost of care. But I would say that it is something that has to come along with the development of the supply chain. And that's what I think is very exciting about the efforts that Make in India is designed to do, which is enhancing the incentives for suppliers to be based here in India as well. So with that, I want to thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you.
Working 9 to 5, but first 5 to 9, putting in a few hours more for a few seconds less. That time between dreaming and creating, and the 25th hour is made. And while the world may say there are only so many minutes in a day, there are few who know better.
Our next speaker will be sharing some valuable information on the outreach and scope of mobile hospitals. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage the Director of Sri Sathya Sai Mobile Hospital Program, Mr. K. Narasimham.
The Sathya Sai medical mission, as we can see, has passed through 3 distinct phases. In the first phase, general hospitals were set up to show to the world that primary and secondary care to the poor and needy need to be provided absolutely free of cost. The medical mission took a giant stride, so to say, when Sai Baba now conceived of super specialty hospitals which provide tertiary care, open heart surgeries, complicated neurosurgeries being provided absolutely free of cost to the poor and the needy. And the medical mission has now taken a quantum leap, so to say, when it was decided that it is not enough if this high quality medical care is just provided. It should be delivered, he said. And hence, the Sathya Sai Mobile Hospital was started in Puttaparthi, notwithstanding the fact that there is a general hospital and also a super specialty hospital. And if we look at it from a larger perspective, this outreach program is perhaps the answer for all the ills plaguing our rural healthcare delivery system. And here was our master who struck the master stroke, I would say. He said, you need not install technology in villages, carry them in mobile vehicles. You use the village school to create a mini hospital, take the doctors also along with you, conduct a quality medical service from morning to mid-afternoon, and by the end of the day, the doctors can come back, the equipments can be brought back for any preventive maintenance. The doctors need not feel that they have to work in rural areas, and they can enjoy the city life and all the facilities with it. There are 8 aspects of the mobile hospital. First thing is it's manned by voluntary personnel. Secondly, regularity and fixity in its approach. We have skilled manpower, a sound diagnostic support, management principles being sound, a strong pharmacy and a good backup support, a holistic approach which is very important, about which some of the speakers earlier also made mention. The first thing is the service is totally manned by voluntary doctors. We have about 400 doctors coming from the different districts of Andhra Pradesh state. They represent 10 specialities. And these doctors come on their own, even bearing their transportation costs. You may say, some of you, that perhaps they are religious, spiritual, they are devotees of Bhagavan Baba. No, I can say more than half of them are not so. The innovation which we made was to create a correct technical atmosphere, a professional ambience, if I can use the word, because we see the doctors, when they come, an ophthalmologist, suppose he comes, if he finds that there is a slit lamp, an autorefractometer, a tonometer, an ophthalmoscope, he feels so happy that at the end of the day, he feels that he has done something concrete for at least a few patients. This is how we really expanded our doctors' base. We started with 150 doctors, and now we have 350 doctors. And then in the doctors segment, we made a small innovation. There are certain specialties like psychiatry, dermatology, pathology, where there's a great demand for doctors. It's not easy to get doctors. What we did was we made fixed days in the 2-week mobile hospital service. When they come, we pool all the patients who come from these different villages on that particular day, and they get the complement of effective medical service. Regularity and fixity in service is the hallmark of Sri Satya Sai Mobile Hospital. This sort of a regularity and fixity, as you can see, brings faith and confidence in the hearts and minds of these villages, and it brings credibility to the service. Skilled manpower. Normally we see in rural medical services, hardly 2 or 3 general doctors go, they do some window dressing exercise, they come back. But we were very clear that we should have the best of doctors on the field. So about 9 specialties were identified, and we thought if we can cover these 9 specialties, most of the rural community health problems can be identified. Yes, sound diagnostic support. This is the star attraction of the Satya Sai Mobile Hospital. Sai Baba made a simple point. You doctors go to villages, and then after examining the patients, you give a slip asking them to get an X-ray done or an ultrasound done somewhere outside. The very purpose of your going there has been defeated, because now you are asking them to go out. So he gave us a beautiful diagnostic bus which has an inbuilt ultrasound, which we have scaled it up to a 2D color Doppler variant of it. We have an X-ray with an automatic processor. We have an ECG, and we have a lab in which most of the biochemical and pathological investigations can be done, because we have an semi-auto analyzer, a cell counter, and things like that. And for tests, blood tests which cannot be done on the field, we made a small innovation. We collect the sample, process it, and if it is serum, we send in ice pack containers. One of our volunteers carries it to our super specialty hospital and brings back the reports. We quickly finish our presentation with this important aspect of my presentation, the impact, because anybody would immediately ask me, what has been the impact of your program? The impact on the beneficiaries and also the serving doctors and paramedics. The impact of the curative service, as I told you, it has produced a sense of security and confidence. And it has disrupted the unfortunate racket which exists in every village of these quacks. And there is reduction of need of tertiary services also. For example, diabetes, if you control the blood sugars properly, if the glycemic control is proper, the need for treating diabetic retinopathy or nephropathy automatically comes down. And as I said, there is one chunk of ailment called the asymptomatic diseases, as we call the tip of the iceberg phenomenon in public health parlance, which only is seen in the community, but a great portion of it is hidden. That gets tapped out when you do screening programs. So the message at the end, I would say, is love all and serve all. Manava Seva is Madhava Seva.
It's the most auspicious time of the season, and it's time to welcome another year of wealth and prosperity.
Watch Mahura Trading and all the excitement in the markets this festive season only on CNBC TV18.
Catch the Diwali market specials presented by IRB at these times.
Presented by IRB Infrastructure Developers Limited, Highway to Growth. Powered by Murugappa, Bet We Have Met. In association with Toshiba, Human Smart Community by Lifenology, and Manyavar, Ye Diwali Roshan Aap Hi Se.
Have you ever noticed how in Hollywood movies all the villains are played by Brits?
Maybe we just sound right.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mary.
We're more focused, more precise.
With a certain style.
And we're obsessed by power.
And we all drive Jaguars. Oh, yes. It's good to be bad.
NSE FinViz Season 2 kickstarts with young professionals at Tech Mahindra in Pune, with the country's finest experts advising them on sound financial planning.
The biggest income generating asset is yourself, right? You need to ensure your health. You need to ensure your life. You need to have adequate protection for your family.
The underlying theory behind real estate is that it's generally people hold it for long term, which does not happen in case of equities.
Catch NSE FinViz at these times only on CNBC TV18.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
Country Club presents Asia's biggest New Year Bash 2015.
You must join me
for Asia's biggest New Year Bash 2015.
Come watch me sing, dance and create total hangama
only at Asia's biggest New Year's Bash.
Country Club rocks. Become a member today.
The time has come for us to get our last speaker on board. He's going to talk to you about an innovation called immunotherapy that provides relief to cancer patients. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Jamal Khan from Denvax Clinic.
You know, we are frightened of the word cancer. Everyone is frightened of cancer. Why? The reason is there is uncertainty. Uncertainty, and the patient of a cancer, even the family, believes that he will die of cancer. It's the only disease where the certainty is death, uncertainty is life. You do all things, whatever you do, stage 1 may go to stage 4. The same treatment will lead to stage 4. The same treatment will lead to cure. What is the difference between the two patients, although they have been diagnosed of the disease at the same stage? You know, the biology of cancer is basically an intrinsic disorder. It is starting from the body. It is not an infection. My body is a factory. So I will produce enormous amounts of cells, so there has to be some abnormal production, which is called as mutation. The mutation is normal, but the cancer is abnormal. So what is the missing link here? The missing link here is the immune system. The immune system which checks cancer. That is the hidden link. So the immune system has a potential to cure the mutations, to take care of the mutations. So basically, unless you treat the origin of cancer, you are not going to win the race against cancer. So this is what I have to say in the short 5-7 minutes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up this summit, I would like to introduce our white paper launch on innovations in healthcare. The report has been compiled by the EY team. May I please invite here partner EY, Mr. Muralidharan Nair, on stage to shed some light on this report.
It's a given fact that while we have achieved great success in really creating a low-cost healthcare delivery system in India, it's also a truth that 70% of the population can neither afford nor access healthcare. So given that context, I think the solution for us is definitely innovation, and it's not an option. It's a non-negotiable imperative. But having said that, when we actually started the drill of writing a report, we realized that most of the publications in this area of innovation in healthcare were largely having different degrees of lament about lack of an ecosystem for innovation in India. We felt that possibly that's not the right way to look at innovation, because innovators possibly don't wait for ecosystem. They actually create themselves what they want to do by the power of their own passion and their enterprise. There are a lot of things happening, and there's some outstanding success stories that we came across the continuum of care, from primary till tertiary care. And that's where we thought that we would rather use this report as a kind of source of inspiration and confidence building to give a kind of courage to enterprise among the startups and the small players who are essentially the engine of innovation in this industry. All innovations must follow into certain characteristics for it to be commercially successful. I think 2 or 3 key points there. One, it has to be material. When I say material, what we mean is that if you are making an offering which is of a differentiated kind, it has to make at least a 40% change in the current state. That means if you are making an offering of a service which costs 100 rupees, anything which is more than 60 rupees is not really going to move the needle. Second very important thing for all innovations that we have seen is the way you market them, because I think some other speaker mentioned today in the previous session, and which is very true, that anything cheap is normally associated as being inferior in quality. So we do have seen some people have great innovative products, but I think it makes a lot of sense for them to make that extra investment and get the right accreditation so that they can market the product with the right level of assurance on the quality front. And the third point, which is equally important, is most of these innovations are coming from smaller players. And what they don't have is possibly the experience and expertise of business management and expertise in many other capabilities that are relevant for making an idea into a business. Given the fact that our ecosystem is not yet developed, but healthcare is not a problem of tomorrow, it's a problem of yesterday, we can't wait. So I think mentoring organizations, which is something that is lacking in our country today, can go a long way in making innovation a sustainable process in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nair. If I may request all our eminent speakers to please come on stage and unveil the report.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Presented by ICICI Lombard Health Insurance. Journal partner, The Indian Practitioner. Exclusive media partner, Medgate. Magazine partner, Drug Today Medical Times. And Healthcare Executive. On-ground partner, Inox.
Weekends